Yeah, guys, I feel like, good last couple days preparing for these guys. Obviously a really good defense we're playing. I feel like these last few games they've played really well. Disturbed the quarterback a little bit too on some of those pressure downs. And yeah, we're looking forward to the challenge as we are every single week.
Tell us about your cause and the cleats there.
Yeah. So it is the Jesse Reese Foundation. You see it all the time as NEGU. It stands for Never Ever Give Up. It's a foundation for children fighting cancer, and it just tries to spread joy to these kids that are fighting cancer. And doing everything that they can. They make these things called joy jars, which they deliver in the hospitals, and there's just a ton of cool little toys in there for kids to play with, and coloring books and all sorts of things. So and then they do a lot of great things to help raise money for the cause as well. So just people I've been working with since high school, and very happy to represent them as my cleats, my cause.
How did you get connected with them in high school?
Yeah, so going to Elite 11 as a high schooler, that quarterback camp. Jordan Palmer was helping run it, who's actually still my quarterback coach to this day, but he's very highly involved in their organization, their foundation. And there was a kid there. He was very little at the time. Now he's grown up and he's bigger now, but his name's Cade Spinello. Super Cade is what they called him, or what they still call him. And he's an incredible person, and he really touched my heart with just his story and how he battled, and how NEGU really helped him get through some really tough times, battling cancer. So that just really hit home for me when I was in high school, and I feel like I've developed a good relationship with the people there and a lot of the kids that NEGU tries to help throughout that whole process.
Have you been able to extend that in the Seattle area yet?
Yeah, I think they've done some really good work in Seattle. Hopefully these next couple weeks, especially around the holidays, we'll get to a hospital, and try to impact some of the kiddos' lives.
Sam, when you went back and watched the tape from last Sunday, what sort of jumped out to you?
Yeah, I think for me, I just got to go through my progressions, listen to my feet, and just, be able to, just not necessarily just get stuck on one or two guys, and be able to just move on in progression.
How do you look at tape differently now at this point of your career than maybe you did when you were in your first couple of years, especially when you look back at maybe a tough game like that?
Yeah, I think for me, especially with the guys that they have on defense, I feel like they did a really good job disguising, and for me, it's just about keeping my eyes down the middle of the field, and just moving from there. Keeping my eyes down the middle of the field, seeing the shell a little bit better, and just getting to the right spots with the ball.
Getting stuck on one or two guys, how often has that been an issue? Why was it against the Rams?
No, I think just just having a better understanding when the ball's snapped, just what the coverage is, and when a guy's going to come open and when he's not. I think just when I say get stuck on a progression, I mean just seeing one side of the field and feeling like there's a chance that someone's going to get open over there, rather than just moving on and clicking through my progression as I normally do.
How hard is that to do with Smith and Jigba leading the free world and yards and all that?
Yeah, again, it's that's for me. It's just I go through my progressions no matter what the play is, first, second, third down, no matter who we're playing. So I think it's just continuing to do that and do it at a high level.
Sam, while it's part of the position, just how aware of you as a leader, the next play mentality, and the awareness that your demeanor is going to change after a play when you go back to that huddle?
Yeah, my demeanor, I hope it doesn't change. I'd like to think it doesn't change at all. Things are going to happen throughout the course of a game. Obviously, you'd love for those things not to happen, negative plays. But that's football sometimes. And for me, I just have to have a mentality of moving on to the next play, because there's nothing that I can do once I throw an interception or fumble, or there's nothing I can do at that point to change that. So it's about moving on as fast as I can, understanding why I messed up, looking back at it and understanding, okay, this is why this happened, and just being able to move on. And, I felt like I did a, pretty good job of that, in LA. Obviously, it didn't go the way that I wanted to, and the mistakes kept happening. But I felt like when I did make mistakes, I was able to just move on, the way I normally do.
Is that easy? Is it? I mean, do you have to fight the urge to yell and just do whatever you would naturally do? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's some times that I'm able to yell into a towel or do whatever, or maybe slam something down on the ground. But yeah, there's definitely times where I get angry on the sideline. But I do a pretty good job of hiding it, I guess.
When Ernest comes up after you in the press conference and says what he says, like, what does that mean to you? Just you personally, and just what does it say about this team?
Yeah, we've put a lot of work in up to this point. And, I think myself included, but all those guys in the locker room, we've all put a lot of work in. When things, don't necessarily go the way that I want them to, especially, on game day, the reason that it sucks for me is because I feel like I'm letting those guys down. And I feel like a lot of the guys in the locker room feel the same way. So that's kind of, that energy, and the things that he said. It meant a lot to me, just to, for a guy to have my back like that. But again, it doesn't, I know that the guys are just going to go fight no matter what the case is. And so I'm going to do everything that I can to put my best foot forward and go execute at a high level.
Is this team and locker room unique in that way, or is that the NFL, the profession you're in?
Yeah, not every, it's not every locker room that's like that. I've been around some really good locker rooms, some locker rooms that, aren't necessarily as close. But, I would say this locker room is at the top for sure. Just the way that, everyone comes together, the way that, they, just fight for each other. I think it's very evident with the way that, we play football on Sundays.
Sam, not every turnover is created equal, obviously, but I think over the last 4 games, you guys have 12 total combined. Kind of, how do you read that? I know some of them are different than others, obviously, but like, I'm sure that's a number you're not super happy with. How do you guys try to focus in on getting that where it needs to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's unacceptable. We understand as an offense we have to be better. I have to be better protecting the football. And we're doing everything that we can in practice and when the game comes to try to, take care of the football a little bit better.
What do you like about the way the team responded? Not necessarily to the turnovers, but just kind of the looking ahead, knowing where the corrections need to be made, and almost the resolve instead of the disappointment.
Yeah, I think, it's something that Coach mentioned right after the game, just understanding kind of where we are and, if that ball goes through the uprights on the last play, like there's no reason to look at it any different. We're still going to come in here, make the corrections, and do everything that we need to move on to Tennessee, which, that's where mind is at. And so that's kind of where we're at and where we were at, the last couple days, leading into Wednesday. Good.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.